So we are going to go over Jeffrey Epstein and why he is important to the current climate. Here's the thing about Jeffrey Epstein. Most of us have researched to the nines what this man was like, what his motivations were, all of that. The key to Epstein is not within the man. The key to Epstein is through his connections, okay? That is what makes him so terrifying, and that is what makes all of this so messy. This man has had international ties. This man has had ties to people from Israeli spy groups, the KGB. This man has had a lot of ties to higher intellectual circles, including MIT Media Lab. MIT Media Lab has like over 100 companies, private companies, invested into that. Okay, so this man has literally had his handprints in everything. When I say there's a good possibility he may be the reason our economy tanked in 2008, I'm not joking. So we're going to get into that. This first connection that I have literally all stems from just one man, and that was his first boss. Okay, right around the time he was almost in his 30s. Okay, he was a young man. He went to work at the Dalton School. Okay, now the reason why everyone shakes their head when they research this, okay, to start with, is because Dalton School allowed Mr. Epstein to teach underage children without credentials. Now, there is only one way he could have gotten into this, and that was the headmaster, was named Donald Barr. Mr. Barr left Dalton School in the summer of 1974, okay? This is when Jeffrey Epstein first began working there. The year before he began working for Dalton School, Donald Barr wrote a book, okay? This book was called Space Relations. I'm not finishing the entire title. I'm just giving you the basic one. It was called Space Relations. Space Relations, when you read the synopsis of it, which I have it here, and I'll go ahead and read it now. In the future, humans have formed an intergalactic empire ruled by aristocrats. During a time of war with the Plith, an empire of ant-like alien bug people, Ambassador John Craig, a formerly liberal Earthman in his 30s, is dispatched to the strategically important planet Kosar, a human colony that was settled by the Carlisle Society as a place of exile for political extremists, and is now ruled by an oligarchical high council of 7 nobles, each of whom is in charge of a different domain in its own traditions. Their boredom and absolute power had driven them to madness, to the point that the Kosar's entry into the empire had been stymied by the Man-Inhabited Planets Treaties Clause, which was written by Craig, the main character, against alliances with slave-owning societies due to its practice of kidnapping humans to become illegal playthings of the galaxy's super rich. While en route to Kosar, one of the pirates awakened Craig and the other prisoners to rape a 15-year-old virginal redhead female. The rapist's fellow pirates later hear of this and then dock his pay as punishment for spoiling her market value. Craig then spends 2 years as a slave from the beautiful, sensual, and sadistic Lady Morgan Sidney, the only female member of the oligarchy with whom he became romantically involved. Together they lived in her castle, ruling over and engaging in sexual relations with those under their dominion, including an enslaved teenager at the clinic used to breed enslaved people. When Craig stumbles on hints of an alien invasion, he realizes he must escape to save humanity. Craig is depicted as undisturbed by Lady Morgan's sadism. When he is ordered to sexually assault the enslaved teenager, he enjoys his participation. That is the book, written in 1973, okay? The year before this man was allowed to work at this school. Gee, what talking points did they have in common? Now, the reason Donald Barr is extra important is because his son is none other than Bill Barr, the U.S. Attorney General, an ex-U.S. Attorney General. He spawned Bill Barr. Now, why is Bill Barr important to all this? Well, we all know that Mr. Epstein is great friends with a certain orange man, okay? He's buddies with Trump. We have evidence, we have records, all of that, okay? Let's be real, he's buddies with him. The reason Bill Barr is important is because Bill Barr, the U.S. Attorney General, is who handled the Jeffrey Epstein case. And so this is what Mr. Barr had to say about that. There are serious irregularities at this facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation. Now, what came out of that? We don't have a list, we don't have files, nothing, just little bits and pieces here and there floating around the internet. Because as acting U.S. Attorney General, okay, he wrote the argument for rendition. Rendition is when the FBI is allowed to go, without the local government's consent, to go apprehend someone who is guilty of terrorism or the war on drugs. Who started the war on drugs? Mr. Reagan. Oh yes, there's a lot to do with Trump and Mr. Reagan. He also argued for an increase of incarceration rates here in the United States. Also involved in a scandal. The scandal was called the Inslaw scandal, which was a private information company that was working for our government, okay? Now, why is this important? Because, again, it's an information technology group. So Inslaw tracked and kept track of all of our representatives, everyone who works for our government. This happened in 1995. Now, why is this important? Because I looked at the judges who were in charge, who were involved in that whole case. The company, Inslaw scandal, they won the lawsuit and got damages. However, when they went to go to the next step, Mr. Barr just threw it up even higher and basically said, whatever. And after that, nothing really came of it. Now, there were 5 sitting judges at this time. The first one that I looked into was Loren A. Smith. Loren, the reason he is important is because he was a part of the International Elections Committee, and he was also around for Watergate with Ronald Reagan. He was also appointed by Ronald Reagan. James F. Monroe was also appointed by Reagan. So, Roger is interesting. The reason why the Roger one is interesting is because he died 1 month before the September 11th attacks. And at this point in time, once you get into all of this, you're going to understand that dates are never coincidence. We have Bohdan A. Fudi, who was on that committee, and he was originally from Ukraine, the same place that Robert Maxwell is from, Ukraine, old age Poland. Robert Hodges. But then we have this last guy, Robert Hodges Jr. Okay, Robert Hodges, this man here, was appointed by George Bush Sr., so he was not appointed by Reagan. However, he served as an aide to James Strom Thurmond. This man, James Thurmond, was heavily against any civil rights legislation whatsoever. Lawsuit of the Inslaw Group, okay, they purposefully dragged out proceedings for 12 years. Now, why would you go and do that? It was found that the technology was passed out to his Israeli operatives. His first boss had enough in common with Epstein, and that's all that was needed. With the networking this man was able to do, it is incredibly scary to know that just with one freaking person, his first boss, Donald Barr, that one person, he was able to gain access that easily. Know that he had a girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell is serving 20 years in prison. People, if you look hard enough, you will find that there are recordings of Donald Trump asking whether or not Ghislaine mentioned him or talked about him. Ghislaine, with her charges, should have gotten at least 50 to 60 years in prison. She did not. Her father had a lot of ties. This is also equally scary because, again, through Epstein, this man, one man, because of his father-in-law, was able to have connections all over the world. Robert Maxwell has ties to the Kremlin, and he has ties to Mossad. Interestingly enough, even though Epstein later was found to hang out with Bill Gates, in 1991, Microsoft actually sued Maximoff Publications. So Bill Gates was involved in this a long time ago and had no idea. This is in 1991. The following year, in 1992, Robert Maxwell's sons, Ian and Kevin, were arrested on conspiracy charges. Bill Gates also owns, MIT Media Lab. Epstein arranged $2 million to be paid to Bill Gates. Why is this important? Because Bill Gates is a main backer of this lab, the Media Lab. What's been going on with our media lately? Already, ties to government. We already have ties to major media conglomerates. We already have ties to Trump. This is only one connection. One. When we say that this is serious, when we say that this goes deeper and farther than any of you understand, when we say there is reason to worry that we are getting South Africans and Ukrainians over here with no problem, but Hispanics are barred, it's not just racism. Both Ukraine and South Africa are considered trafficking hubs. Mr. Epstein was part of a massive trafficking group. And while I cannot find any connections to connect him or Diddy together, it must be stated, first and foremost, that Epstein and Prince Andrew, who is a disgraced royal member for also engaging in illicit activities with a minor, they were very close. And there is only one photo of the two of them in existence together. That is one person. Epstein also stayed in the royal private cottage, reserved only for family members. That cottage is in Scotland. You literally have to be okayed by the royal family to stay there. What did Epstein have? I finally adjourn for this first video. One last little tidbit. Princess Diana died in August of 1997. Up until that month and that year, there were several court filings that were back to back by Mr. Epstein. August came around, they stopped. And they didn't pick back up again until November. Dates are important. Who these people hang around is important. Vanity Fair and Rolling Stone are weirdly treasure trove of information. Look at interviews with Vanity Fair and Rolling Stone with Mr. Trump, with Epstein and Maxwell and her family. You will find a lot there. And once you begin there, you will begin to see the connections everywhere without effort. Because what you're reading is someone who is playing a part and doing it well, and paying someone to write about them well. This is bigger than anything that we've come across thus far as an American people. Because what this implies is that this is all state sanctioned, that there is a stamp on it. And why do I say that? Well, because look who's sitting in office. Look who has ties to Diddy. Look who has ties to Epstein. Look who has ties to Prince Andrew. Look at who has ties to the Saudi Arabian prince. Ukraine, his wife, remember? His friend, Elon Musk, who's from South Africa, remember? All these things all seem to have one thing in common, and that is the heinousness of being a predator to underage children.